Seeing is believing, but what if you see something your brain just doesn't agree with? Sometimes, what you see with the naked eye isn't the whole story, and the baffling scene only starts to make sense when you've digested it with your common sense. Whether it was intentional or not, camera angles, timing, and how well the subject blends in with the background can all contribute to some very mind-boggling pictures. Although some of the photos we're about to show you seem to defy the laws of the universe, if you sit back and squint a little, we assure you there's a perfectly logical explanation behind all of it. To get your optical gears running, here are 10 pictures that are sure to make you look twice. Before we delve in, make sure to eyeball and poke the subscribe button for more amazing videos from our channel. It's the only task in this video that's not optically confusing, so hit that red button now. Bored cat. We all know that cats are some of the most nonchalant creatures on this earth. But would they really let their lower chins rest on top of a random pole like this? I don't know, but my cat is way more picky than this. I think she prefers the chef selection of assorted sashimi over anything out of a can. We all know that if a cat is done with a certain topic, they're done, and they would waste no time hiding their true feelings. This picture looks like the perfect marriage between reality and a cartoon, where the artist just got fed up and drew a straight line where the kitty's jaw should have been. The facial expression of this cat looks like the spitting image of Garfield on a good day. But if we look closely, we quickly realize that the cat's face is simply obscured by this metal pole. It's even more confusing when the adjacent pole doesn't have the same semicircular cap. In any case, it's a relief to think that this adorable white and orange cat isn't looking at me with quite the disdain I imagined. Rather, the bottom of its face was simply covered by this metal pole at just the right time and at just the right angle. Props to the photographer for capturing the moment before the feline caught on. Camouflaged legs. Speaking of feline patterns, did you know that a lot of feline patterns, whether it be the stripes of tigers or the spots of leopards, serve as camouflage to conceal them from their potential prey? That's right, they just disappear into the grass for unsuspecting antelopes. It might be hard to imagine how one can just blend into one's environment, but even humans can do it. Leopard print has come in and out of fashion for decades, but it's hard to imagine how it could produce an entirely unintentional camouflage effect. One would imagine wearing leopard print to stand out in a crowd, not to blend in. But in this picture, this lady looks like she's floating above her environment. Perhaps she's reached the highest state of nirvana, or perhaps she just happened to be wearing leggings that blend in perfectly with the tile pattern in this hallway. It looks like she's got no legs, but it's simply an unfortunate color coincidence, and the use of a low dynamic range camera that produced this ghostly result. We're sure that as soon as she went down the elevator and emerged in a new environment, her legs felt a lot more solid. Now, doesn't that make you more wary of which patterns you choose to adorn yourself with? Shrunken head. In addition to what you wear, sometimes just the position of your body can make for some pretty odd photos. We've all been caught in awkward poses and expressions in photos, and I hope that our friends had the decency not to tag us. But at least it never looked like we had a miniature for a head. This hilarious photo makes me imagine that the teacher's lecture was so boring that this person's head just quietly decided to downsize. Or perhaps someone's been irresponsible with the shrink ray. Unfortunately, it's not a new curse you can inflict upon people who click their pens too much in class. What really happened was the photographer was able to capture this moment at just the right angle. The subject presumably had a night of hard partying and couldn't keep her head up in class. The neck and head of the guy just in front of her happens to align perfectly with the opening of her t-shirt. It doesn't help that there's a similar looking person in the corner to serve as a size comparison. Now our only question is, who's wearing the necklace? We think it's the person in front, but let us know what you think in the comments below. Bodacious man. Speaking of weird things happening to body parts, imagine for a second that you woke up the next day with a completely different body. It's a terrifying thought, right? Sounds like the plot of the next horror B movie. Although I suppose it would depend on whose body you woke up in. It's hard to imagine anyone complaining about switching with a hot celebrity. Hey, you get all the muscle tone without any of the hard work or the kale diets. But what if it's only half your body? And what if it belonged to a different gender? That seems to be just what happened to this man. There seems to be something girly about his hindquarters. I really had to look at this photo twice to determine the source of his curvy bottom. Not to mention the smooth legs and toned calves. Okay, I'll stop. No, despite his sassy pose, this man is not born with abnormally large hips. A woman is bending over between the man and the photographer, and her back just happens to blend into the man's lower back. So much so that his left hand seems to be clasping his waist. But if you look closely, you can see that what looks like a waist clinching belt is actually the back of the woman's bikini top, breaking the otherwise flawless and somewhat disturbing illusion. Three-legged girl. History had its share of extraordinary bodies. Frank Lentini achieved prominence in the sideshow business as the three-legged football player, and for good reason. It's not every day that you see someone with an odd number of limbs, let alone one that plays sports. But sometimes, what appears to be an extraordinary body is simply a trick of the eye. Now, if there's anything we've learned, it's that other people's body parts can pass off as one's own if the photo is taken at just the right angle. But what about inanimate objects? And no, we don't mean replacing your limbs with tools a la superhero. It's hard to imagine how a vase could possibly pass for someone's leg, but that's just what happened in this photo. I really had to stare hard at my computer screen in confusion, because it looks like there's an extra appendage sticking out between her legs. No, get your mind out of the gutter. Interestingly, the bizarre middle appendage is her actual leg, and what appears to be her leg is really a vase she's holding. This vase conveniently mimics the color properties of a leg and pantyhose, right down to the blending between its two color tones. Were you initially confused by the chameleon nature of this vase? Let us know in the comments. Giant lobster. We love giant versions of everyday things, whether it be the world's biggest hamburger or a ridiculously oversized body part. And if we magnify the creatures we're already afraid of tenfold, then they become the stuff of nightmares. Many horror movies are already taking advantage of the uncanny effect produced by the oversized insect, whether it's giant spiders, mosquitoes, or even ticks. But what if there was a giant version of a more palatable creature? Did you know the friendly fancy dinner lobster is practically immortal? What is their secret? Lobsters don't age, and as time goes on, they simply molt and become bigger. They say that you can tell how old a lobster is by how heavy it is. Does that mean they can expand indefinitely? This picture seems to suggest so. Upon first glance, it looks like the photographer has captured a shot in space of a giant lobster wreaking havoc on an entire planet. Heck, I'd pay to watch that film. But what appears to be shot from the latest sci-fi horror is actually a trick of framing. It's a close-up shot of a cooking pot, and the camera angle makes the bottom of the pot look like a watery mercurial planet. And in a stroke of luck, the water droplets reflecting light from the edge of the cooking pot make them look like faraway stars in the galaxy. Earth or car? Speaking of science fiction films, those blockbuster space movies the studios are so fond of these days are racking up astronomical budgets. Did you know the film Gravity consisted of 80% CGI? Computer graphic imaging costs millions of dollars. And it's perhaps even more expensive to get epic shots of Earth from outer space. But what if you wanted to make a film and achieve the same effect with 0% of the budget? Well, this photographer seems to have accidentally found the answer. I had to look at this photo several times because it really does look like a breathtaking view of Earth with its gorgeous blue bodies of water and white cloud currents. It's only after I read the description and turned up the brightness level on my computer monitor that I realized the awesome scene is actually just a picture of the roof of some guy's car. The car happens to be blue, and the white swirling pattern is due to the winter frost. The early morning light shrouds much of the scene in darkness, but if you look closely, you'll see that there's a brick wall and chain link fence behind the car, making this image look a lot more down to earth. So the next time you want to shoot a sci-fi epic with no money, find the nearest blue car and hope that winter is coming. Painting or landscape? As any avid traveler knows, the Earth is full of wonders with its dynamic range of climates and geographical terrain. Ever hear the expression that something is picturesque? The speaker probably means that whatever they're looking at is beautiful, so beautiful that it belongs in a picture. They probably don't mean that it literally looks like a painting, but once again, Mother Nature has some wonderful surprises up her sleeve. Although this picture looks like it belongs in a modern art museum, it actually isn't a painting. The painter Van Gogh liked to use hyper-vivid colors to exaggerate reality. But if that was art mimicking life, then this surely counts as life mimicking art. What looks like a vibrant painting is actually one of the many photographs of the Namib-Naukluft National Park in Namibia. The Namib Desert is one of the world's oldest deserts. Its crimson sand dunes, combined with the distinctive camel thorn trees, make it look as if it was part of an alien landscape. It helps that the photographers seem to have used a long lens, compressing the distance between objects and making everything look like they belong on one flat layer. Maybe they should just shoot the next Mars movie here and save on the CGI budget. Apartment or instrument? By now we've seen what it might look like if certain objects were smaller or bigger. But have you ever wondered what the world would look like if you were tiny? Think Honey, I Shrunk the Kids tiny. Well, you would definitely have more space and could even live in a shoe, following the example of the old woman who lived in a shoe. Apparently, someone actually took the story seriously and constructed this home. As long as it doesn't smell like a shoe, I approve. Either way, it'd be a radical change in perspective. Take a look at this picture. It looks like a modern apartment that I definitely can't afford with a stylish wooden interior, curved walls, and enviable skylight. You might already be imagining how you'd like to furnish this place, and what music to play at your next swanky get-together. Well, living here would be a musical experience indeed, because this is actually the inside of a guitar, and those lines above the skylight are strings. So much for a quiet place to sleep. We're not used to seeing musical instruments from the inside out.
which added to the confusion as our brains searched for a logical explanation for this very unique perspective. And hey, if you love the design and are also an eccentric millionaire, I bet you could find someone to make this. I hear they can make pretty much anything these days. Backbending hug. We saved the best for last, or in this case, the most awkward for last. We all know hugs can be awkward, especially if you don't know the other person very well. Fortunately, they don't last very long, so you can always make a swift exit. It's even worse when you're stuck in an uncomfortable position with someone, but too polite to say anything about it, as you feel your shoulders scrunch up and your joints on the verge of dislocating. Ouch. This woman looks like she was in that situation for far too long. I definitely cringed before taking a second to look at this picture, as it appears that either her back is malformed or her neck has shifted out of place under the merciless grasp of her friend's arm. But she looks pretty happy about it, not at all like a pretzel being bent out of shape. Then it became clear that once again, it's a trick of the eye produced by the low-definition camera combined with the dim lighting. Also, she just happens to be wearing a white shirt, just like the woman standing behind her, making their torsos visually blend together like two puzzle pieces, combining to make one hunchback picture. We're glad her spinal cord is fine and well. Did you feel your neck cramp up when you saw this picture? Tell us in the comments. We hope you were amazed and at least a little optically confused by our list. Perhaps now you'll look a little closer at everyday things just to see if you could find that magical angle. If your eyes just can't get enough, here are some other videos for your entertainment. And if you'd like to keep a lookout for more fun videos, subscribe to our channel to never miss a video. See you next time!